I only asked one question.
When's the wedding, sweetheart?
My son went silent, and his wife smiled, that slow, practiced smile that hides something sharp.
We got married yesterday. Only special people were invited.
Only special people.
We got married yesterday, she said. Only special people were invited. I froze. 3 years of helping them survive, paying their rent, buying their food, holding their secrets. And now I wasn't special enough to stand beside my own child. That night, I stared at the empty chair at my kitchen table, and I swore this would be the last time they mistook my kindness for weakness, because when a mother finally stops crying, the world should start to worry. Ethan stood behind her, my son, my boy. He couldn't meet my eyes. His silence told me everything. I didn't shout, didn't ask why, didn't beg. I just stood there, feeling the ground tilt under my feet. The pale pink dress I'd bought for her wedding flashed through my mind, hanging in my closet untouched. $200, the shoes beside it, a $1,000 gift in an envelope on my dresser, all waiting for a day that had already happened without me. Amber brushed invisible lint from her skirt. Ethan mumbled something about keeping it small. I heard nothing but that word again, special. I smiled. It wasn't kindness. It was instinct. "Congratulations," I said. My voice didn't shake. I made tea because I didn't know what else to do. That's what you do when the world burns. You boil water. The kettle hissed like it knew a secret. Steam blurred the window where the swing used to hang. My hands didn't tremble as I poured. Amber scrolled her phone. Ethan checked his watch. They looked like strangers waiting in my house for a train that wouldn't stop. I set the cups down. "So," I said quietly, "when did I stop being family?" Ethan flinched. Amber gave me that pity smile again. "Oh, Clara, don't make this about you." But it was about me. Every payment, every favor, every night I'd gone without to make sure they didn't, all erased with a smile. I looked at my son. He looked at the floor. I realized something then. Love isn't blind, it's polite. Too polite to notice when it's being robbed. They left soon after. Amber hugged me like she was touching a stranger. Ethan mumbled, "We'll call." The door closed softly. The house swallowed the sound. I stood in the silence. It was thick, unfamiliar. For the first time, I didn't reach for the phone. I walked to my room. I opened the closet. There it was, the pink dress, still wrapped in its plastic bag. It looked ashamed. I laid it on the bed beside the envelope marked gift. The air felt heavier. I could smell dust, paper, and the faint perfume of regret. I sat down. I opened my phone. The social feed hit me like a punch. Amber in white, her parents beaming, the brothers, the champagne, the vows, a caption under the photo, "The happiest day surrounded by the people who matter most." I scrolled, slowly. I found Ethan's smile, practiced, stiff. I felt my heartbeat somewhere behind my eyes. The room blurred. I put the phone down before it slipped from my hand. Then I opened the calculator. I don't even know why. Maybe I wanted the truth in numbers. 500 a month, 3 years, 18,000, groceries 200 monthly, 7,200, gifts, loans, emergencies. Another 8,000, $33,400. I stared at the screen. That number sat there, silent, smug, final, the price of being uninvited. I whispered it aloud, 33,400. It sounded like a confession. The phone buzzed. Ethan. I didn't move. Then Amber, then both. I let them ring. Each vibration was a ghost knocking. A message blinked on the screen. "Mom, please answer. The rent's due. You forgot the transfer." Forgot. That word almost made me laugh. I turned the phone face down. Let the buzzing die. The house was quiet again. Too quiet. It felt like standing inside a truth I'd never wanted to hear. I took a pen from the drawer and wrote on the back of an old envelope, "No more transfers, no more pity, no more lies." I underlined it twice. I walked to the door, locked it, and listened to the bolt slide home. That sound felt like breathing again. In the mirror, I saw the woman I'd become. Tired eyes, calm mouth, hair half gray, half hope. She looked like someone I could learn to love. I turned off the lights, went to bed, and left the phone on the kitchen table. Let the world wait. Tomorrow they'd call again. Tomorrow they'd beg, explain, manipulate. But tonight belonged to me. Tonight I learned the cost of being kind and the value of saying no. When I finally closed my eyes, I wasn't angry, just awake, completely, beautifully awake. And I already knew the next time they asked for money what I'd say. I only help special people. Morning came slow. Light crept through the blinds like it was afraid of me. I lay still, listening. No phone, no footsteps, just the hum of my fridge and the small pulse in my chest. For the first time in years, I didn't reach for my phone before coffee. I let the kettle hiss. The sound was steady, like courage learning to breathe. I poured 1 cup. For me. No extra mugs for drop-ins. No mental note to save half the milk for Ethan. I sat at the kitchen table, the one where I used to plan birthdays, budget emergencies, write checks I couldn't afford. Now it was just me, the cup, and a stack of bank papers. I opened my checkbook. Each line was a scar. Rent, $500. Groceries, $200. Card, $250. Love, priceless but apparently refundable. The numbers blurred. I blinked hard. Enough. I changed clothes, gray sweater, clean jeans, and drove to the bank. The air outside felt sharp, almost new. Inside, the bank smelled of coffee and disinfectant. Mr. Harper spotted me from his glass cubicle. "Mrs. Whitman," he said, surprised. "You're early." I smiled. "Habit." He gestured to the chair. "What can I do for you?" "And 3 years of mistakes." His eyebrows rose. "I need to cancel all automatic transfers to my son's account, effective today." He tapped on the keyboard. "All of them?" "All of them." He hesitated. "Is everything okay?" For once, the truth was easy. "No, but it's about to be." He nodded, printed a form, slid it across the desk. My signature looked firm, almost foreign. When he handed me the confirmation slip, I felt lighter, as if 3 invisible hands had just unclenched from my shoulders. "Anything else, Mrs. Whitman?" "Yes. How do I protect my account from family access?" His eyes softened. "We can set new security codes. Only you'll know them." "Do it." While he worked, my phone vibrated again. Ethan. I turned it face down. Mr. Harper noticed but didn't comment. When he finished, he said quietly, "You've been very generous, Mrs. Whitman. Maybe too generous." I laughed, small and tired. "You noticed?" He smiled sadly. "I see a lot of accounts, not many hearts like yours." Outside, sunlight bounced off the bank's glass doors. I stepped through and felt it hit my face, bright, cold, clean. For the first time in years, my money was mine. The phone rang again as soon as I reached my car. I let it buzz until it stopped. Then came a message. "Mom, we need to talk, please." I started the engine. The radio crackled to life, an old song Robert loved. The sound almost broke me. At the red light, I read the message again. Need. Always that word. Never want, never love. I drove home with the windows down, let the cold air scrape away the guilt. At home, 3 missed calls. 2 from Ethan, 1 from Amber, then another text. "Mom, rent's late. Landlord's threatening to evict us." "Can you send it today?" I typed slowly, then deleted it, then typed again. "No." I hit send. Seconds later, the phone rang. I answered this time. "Mom, what's wrong with you?" "Nothing's wrong with me," I said. "That's the point. Amber's crying, the landlord's mad, we'll lose the apartment." "You'll survive," I said. "Mom, you can't just—" "I can, And I have. He went quiet. Then his voice hardened. You owe us that rent. I owe you nothing, I said softly. A pause. Then the line clicked. I stared at the screen until it went dark. Silence again. But this time, it didn't scare me. I brewed another coffee. Stronger. Opened the window. Cold wind came in, smelled like rain and freedom. On the counter, my phone lit up again. New message, this time from Amber. Please, Clara, we'll pay you back. I typed back. You already did, with the truth. No reply. Evening found me at the kitchen table again. Bills spread out, organized for once. I used to keep their folders separate, marked Ethan and Amber. I tore them in half. The paper ripped clean, like skin finally healing the right way. I made a small list on a yellow pad. Change locks. Call a lawyer. Find me again. I didn't know what that last one meant, but it felt right. Outside, rain began to fall. Slow. Deliberate. I listened to it tap the windows, steady as a heartbeat. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled. I almost smiled. It sounded like applause. I poured a half glass of wine, sat by the window. I watched the rain smear the streetlights. For years, I'd mistaken fear for loyalty, but fear keeps you small. Tonight, I felt big again. My phone buzzed one last time before midnight. Ethan again. Mom, don't do this. We'll come over tomorrow. I stared at the message until the letters blurred. Then I typed 2 words. Don't bother. I turned off the phone, unplugged the charger, and left it face down. The rain softened. The house grew still. Somewhere deep inside, I felt something shift, like the moment before dawn, when darkness realizes it's losing. Tomorrow, they'll come. I could already feel it, but tonight I wasn't afraid. I was ready. Because when you stop paying for love, you finally see who was selling it. The rain stopped just before noon. The street smelled of wet asphalt and nerves. I'd been cleaning, nothing serious, just movement to quiet my thoughts. Then I heard it. Engines. 3 of them. Through the curtain, Ethan's car, Amber's, and a silver sedan I didn't know. My chest went still. Lawyer, I thought. They had keys, but I had changed the locks yesterday. The doorbell rang once. Then again. Then a knock. I opened it. Amber looked different. Not the bride in lace from the pictures, just a tired woman wearing fear and perfume. Behind her stood Ethan, pale, restless. Beside him, a man in a gray suit, holding a briefcase. Mom, Ethan started. We need to talk. Do you? I said. Amber stepped forward. This is Mr. Cole. He's helping us sort things out. Mr. Cole smiled the way professionals do when they smell money. Mrs. Whitman, I'm here because your children are concerned about your well-being. My children, I said slowly, or my bank account. No one answered. May we come in? He asked. No, I said, but you can talk from there. Ethan's jaw tightened. Mom, please, don't make this harder. It's already hard, Ethan. Try honesty for once. Mr. Cole cleared his throat. Mrs. Whitman, they've noticed recent changes. Erratic spending, isolation, refusal to communicate. They simply want to ensure you're safe. Erratic spending? I laughed once. I stopped spending on them, that's all. Amber's eyes filled instantly. Clara, you're not yourself. We're worried. Maybe loneliness is getting to you. That tone, soft, rehearsed, poisonous. Loneliness, I said. You mean silence. I call it peace. Mr. Cole took out a folder. I've prepared a temporary power of attorney form. It would let them handle finances until things stabilize. He started to hand it to me. I didn't take it. I picked up the trash can beside the door and held it open. Right here, I said. He blinked. I dropped it in. The paper crumpled with a satisfying sound. Amber gasped. Ethan's face went red. Mom, what are you doing? Taking out the trash, I said. Amber's tears dried fast. Her voice sharpened. You can't just cut us off. We depended on that help. That's the problem, I said. You depended. I was enabled. Mr. Cole tried again. Mrs. Whitman, refusing assistance could be taken as evidence of impaired judgment. I looked him straight in the eye. I've managed my life for 71 years without your help. I think I'll risk one more day. Ethan stepped forward. Mom, listen to yourself. You're talking crazy. Crazy, I said. You want to go crazy? Crazy is paying your rent for 3 years. Crazy is wiring money while your wife calls me useless. Crazy is buying your wedding dress and not getting an invitation. Silence. Even the air held its breath. Amber's lip trembled. We never meant to hurt you. Yes, you did, I said softly. You just didn't expect consequences. Mr. Cole's voice thinned. Mrs. Whitman, they have rights as next of kin. They have memories, not rights, I cut in. And those memories are about to get rewritten. I pointed to the door. Leave. Ethan's fists clenched. You'll regret this. I already did, I said, for $33,000. He stared at me, stunned. I'd never raised my voice to him before. Now it felt like breathing. Amber's face twisted. You think you can survive without us? You're old, Clara. You'll end up alone. Then at least it'll be by choice, I said. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then Ethan turned, grabbed Amber's arm. Let's go, he muttered. But Mr. Cole wasn't finished. He leaned closer, lowered his voice. This isn't over, Mrs. Whitman. There are legal avenues. If a judge decides you're unfit, your finances can be reassigned. I smiled. Then I'll see you in court. Bring receipts. He blinked. Excuse me? Bring proof of what you think I owe them. Amber hissed. You're making a mistake. No, I said. I'm finally correcting one. Ethan hesitated at the porch. Mom, he said quietly, almost pleading, we just wanted to help. Then stop hurting. I closed the door, not slammed, just firm, final. The latch clicked. That sound again. Freedom spelled in metal. My hands shook after. Adrenaline, grief, maybe both. I sat on the sofa, staring at the door they'd stood behind. For years, I'd pictured Ethan coming through that door with good news, promotions, babies, holidays. Today, he came with a lawyer. The house felt different, bigger, empty but honest. I let the silence wrap around me. It wasn't cruel, it was clean. On the coffee table, the tea from this morning had gone cold. I took one sip. Bitter. Perfect. I looked at the torn envelope of bank papers, at the checkbook, at the life I'd just taken back. The phone lit up again. Another call. Unknown number. I ignored it. Then came a message. You'll hear from our attorney again soon. I smiled. They had lawyers. I had peace. I grabbed my coat, locked the door behind me, and walked into the evening air that smelled of wet earth and beginning. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't running to the bank. I was walking toward myself. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise. Couldn't sleep. Didn't want to. My hands still shook from yesterday, but the shaking wasn't a weakness anymore. It was energy. I made coffee, black, no sugar, strong enough to burn the fear out of my chest. Then I opened my laptop, typed elder law attorney near me. 3 names appeared. One stood out. Michael Landon, specialized in financial abuse cases. Free consultation. I called. A calm voice answered. Mr. Landon's office. My name's Clara Whitman, I said. I need to protect myself from my family. Silence. Then, can you come in today? Yes, I said, now. His office was on Main Street, brick building, old clock over the door, the kind of place that smells like books and dusted courage. Mr. Landon was mid-50s, gray hair, clear eyes, steady handshake. He didn't rush me. He just listened. I told him everything. The wedding lie, the years of payments, the visit with the lawyer, the threats. When I finished, my throat ached. He nodded slowly. Mrs. Whitman, he said, what you're describing has a name. Elder financial abuse. The words hit me like a revelation, not just betrayal, a crime. He leaned forward. They used emotional pressure to access your money. That's exploitation. It happens more often than you think. I swallowed hard. Can I stop them? Yes, he said, but we do it properly, step by step. He listed them. First, documentation. Every transfer, every check, every message. I slid a folder across the table, already printed. He smiled. Good. Second, we secure your accounts. New passwords, new bank, new cards. Done, I said. Yesterday. Third, he continued, we file a notice with the bank. If anyone tries to access your funds, they'll be flagged. Do it, I said. Fourth, we prepare a formal record of coercion. That visit yesterday, that was intimidation. Write it down in detail. I remember every word I said. He nodded approvingly. Fifth, we prepare in case they escalate, because they will. How? They'll claim you're unwell. That's the oldest trick. They'll try to paint you as confused or unstable. You'll need proof you're not. He handed me a business card. Dr. Moore, licensed psychologist. She does competency evaluations. Get one, today if you can. I nodded. Last, he said softly, you change the locks again and install a camera system. If they come back, we'll have evidence. I exhaled slowly. That's a lot. Yes, he said, but it's power. Step by step, you take your life back. When I left his office, the sky had cleared. The world looked sharper, like someone had wiped the fog off it. I stopped at the hardware store. The owner, Mr. Summers, recognized me immediately. Morning, Mrs. Whitman. More supplies for the kids. Not this time, I said. For myself. He blinked, then smiled. Good for you. I bought 2 heavy locks and a door cam kit. His son, Ethan, a quiet young man, not my Ethan, offered to install them that afternoon. Perfect, I said. The sooner the better. By the time I got home, my phone had 6 missed calls, 4 from Ethan, 2 from numbers I didn't know. I ignored them. While I waited for the installer, I gathered papers, bank slips, transfer receipts, 36 months of proof that love can be itemized. Each page felt like a confession and a weapon at once. At noon, young Ethan arrived with his toolbox. He worked quickly, drilling, tightening, wiring. The smell of metal and sawdust filled the hall. He looked up once and said, "Family trouble?" I smiled faintly. "Family lesson," he grinned. "Good luck, ma'am." When the door clicked shut behind him, I tested the lock. Solid, new, mine. The camera blinked once, small and blue, watching, protecting. I felt safe. For the first time in months. At 3 p.m., my phone buzzed again. A message. Amber. Clara, please, let's talk. We didn't mean to upset you. We love you. I typed back before my heart could interfere. Clara, you loved my money. I just removed the middleman. Seconds later, the typing bubble appeared, then stopped, then started again, then nothing. I turned the phone off. I walked into the living room and stood by the window. Outside, children played. Their laughter drifted through the glass like music from another world. For a second, I imagined Ethan at that age again. Small hands, bright eyes, asking me to push him higher on the swing. I had pushed. Too high, too long. Now he wanted to own the hands that pushed him. I sat down. I opened my notebook, wrote a single line. Freedom costs the same as foolishness. Only one pays back. Then I began my statement for Mr. Landon. Every word, every insult, every time they said, special people. Ink bled into the page like truth, carving its way out. By sunset, the pages were full. My hands ached, but it felt good, real. The phone stayed off. The house stayed quiet. No ghosts tonight. I made soup. Ate in silence. Didn't check the door once. Before bed, I walked through the hallway, testing each new lock. Cold metal under my fingers. Secure. Certain. I turned off the lights. Crawled into bed. The camera's little blue light glowed softly in the dark, like a promise. If they came back, I'd be ready. not just with locks or lawyers, but with the truth. Because love without respect isn't family. It's theft with hugs, 2 quiet days, no calls, no knocks, just the hum of ordinary life. I should have known it meant they were planning something. On the 3rd morning, the doorbell rang. 3 short chimes, businesslike. Through the peephole, a woman in a gray blazer, clipboard in hand, smile too practiced. Mrs. Whitman, I'm with Adult Protective Services. Just a quick wellness check. My stomach turned. They'd finally done it. I unlatched the chain but left the door half closed. Who sent you? She smiled wider. We received a call expressing concern. Said you've been confused lately, forgetting things, neglecting bills. My pulse slowed to a cold, even beat. Let me guess, I said. The caller's name wouldn't happen to be Ethan Whitman? Her pen paused. I'm not allowed to share that. I nodded. Then don't. Come in. Inside, she scanned everything. Countertops, dishes, floors. No clutter, no smell, just order. I'd cleaned the night before without knowing why. Maybe instinct. She scribbled on her form. Do you live alone? Yes. Do you cook for yourself? Every day. Do you handle your finances? I smiled. Better than most banks. I showed her the receipts, neatly stacked, color-coded. She blinked, impressed despite herself. Her questions softened. How long have you lived here? 35 years. And your son? Lost for now. She looked up, something almost kind flickering in her eyes. Then her phone buzzed. She turned away to answer. Yes, she whispered. I'm with her now. No, she seems fine. No, she's not agitated. Her eyes darted to me. Yes, I'll finish the report. She hung up, flustered. I said nothing. Everything appears in order, she said quickly. I'll file the report today. Good, I said. Make sure you spell my name right. Clara Whitman, with 1 T. She gave a small, embarrassed nod and left. I locked the door. Then laughed, short, sharp, unbelieving. They'd tried to weaponize concern. Minutes later, I called Mr. Landon. They sent a social worker, I said. He didn't sound surprised. They're building a case for guardianship, he said. Classic move. The good news is it backfired. She'll file a clean report. What now? We make it official. I'll request a copy of that report and attach it to your file. Proof of your competence. It'll destroy their narrative before it starts. I felt my spine straighten. Let's do it. That afternoon, I baked bread. Not because I needed to eat, because I needed to smell victory rising. At sunset, the camera by the door blinked. Motion detected. I checked the monitor. Ethan's car. He didn't ring. He just stood there, phone in hand, staring at the house he no longer owned a key to. I watched him pace. Then he lifted the phone to his ear. Mine buzzed inside. I let it ring out. He texted, Mom, please, you can't keep doing this. We were only trying to help. Help. The word made me smile. I typed back, help is when you lift someone up, not take what they stand on. I saw him read it. He froze, then walked back to the car. The headlights swept across the porch, then vanished into the night. The next morning, a letter arrived. Typed. Formal. From the office of Cole and Marin, attorneys at law. A polite threat wrapped in legal jargon. Our clients, Ethan and Amber Whitman, have expressed grave concern for your well-being. They reserve the right to petition for conservatorship should your cognitive state decline. I smiled while reading. They were desperate enough to bluff. I called Mr. Landon again. He chuckled. They're overplaying it. We'll send a response. Full competency certification pending. Cease all contact or face harassment charges. I could almost hear the sound of armor fitting into place. After hanging up, I poured another cup of coffee and sat by the window. Outside, frost glazed the garden. Sunlight broke through like forgiveness. For the first time, I didn't feel hunted. I felt watched over by my own resolve. That evening, I got a call from an unfamiliar number. Mrs. Whitman, this is Dr. Moore. Mr. Landon referred you. Can you come tomorrow morning? Yes, I said. I'll be early. Her voice was kind. Don't worry. We'll make sure they can't touch you again. Night fell quiet. I made tea, honey, and chamomile. Sat by the glow of the door camera watching the feed. The empty porch looked peaceful, almost sacred. I thought about the social worker, the quick pen, the nervous phone call. She'd seen through it. That gave me hope. I opened my notebook and wrote, "They tried to save me from myself, but I'm the only one who ever has." I underlined it twice. Then I closed the book and turned off the light. Outside, the world finally stopped knocking. They didn't stop. They just changed tactics. A week after the social worker left, rumors started crawling through the neighborhood, small at first, sharp enough to cut if you weren't ready. "Clara's losing it," someone whispered at the corner store. "She's been confused lately," another said, "left her stove on, nearly burned the place down." Lies. Everyone. I found out from Margaret Dawes, my neighbor. She came over with her scarf half-tied and fury in her eyes. "Clara, have you heard what they're saying?" "No," I said. "Tell me." She lowered her voice. "Amber's been talking to people, says you're forgetful, that you wander at night, that you called her 3 times in 1 hour asking the same question." I laughed. Once. Hard. It didn't sound like humor. It sounded like disbelief scraping against truth. "Did anyone believe her?" I asked. Margaret hesitated. "Some did. She's convincing." Of course she was. Amber always knew how to decorate a lie, pretty enough that no one looked underneath. Margaret leaned closer. "Don't let them win, Clara." "I won't," I said. But that night I sat awake, the words replaying, losing it, forgetful, confused. They were building something again, a story meant to erase mine. The next morning, Mr. Landon called. "They've taken it a step further," he said. "They've gathered witness statements, your pharmacist, a neighbor, a relative. They claim you've been mismanaging medication." I almost laughed again. "Medication? I take vitamins and tea." "I know," he said. "That's why it won't stand, but we'll dismantle it piece by piece." "How?" "With better witnesses," he said. "The truth has a longer tail." That afternoon, I went to the pharmacy myself. The bell over the door jingled like nothing was wrong. The clerk behind the counter, young, nervous, looked startled when he saw me. "Mrs. Whitman," he said. "Good to see you." "Is it?" I asked quietly. He flushed. I just filled your order last week." "You also signed a statement that I've been mixing pills, didn't you?" His face was drained of color. "Amber told me it was just routine paperwork," he stammered. "She said you asked for help." I leaned in. "Son, if I ever need help, I'll ask for it myself." He nodded, almost trembling. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Whitman. I didn't know." I smiled. "Now you do." When I left, the bell didn't sound so cheerful. That evening, Margaret stopped by again. "They came to me, too," she said, angry now. "They asked me to sign a statement saying you forget names, said it was to help you get support." "And did you sign?" I asked. She glared. "Do I look stupid? I told them to get off my porch." I squeezed her hand. "Thank you." "They're desperate, Clara. People like that don't stop when they're losing. They dig." "I know," I said. "Then I'll dig deeper." Next day, I went back to Mr. Landon's office, laid the unsigned witness request from Margaret on his desk. Beside it, a written apology from the pharmacist. He whistled low. "You work fast." "I've had practice cleaning up other people's messes," I said. He smiled. "Let's turn their lies into evidence. You're not the victim here anymore. You're the case study." He drafted an affidavit, attached copies of both documents, and sent them to Cole and Marin. Subject line: defamation and witness tampering. Within hours, we got an automated reply. Cold, nervous. They knew they'd been caught. That night, rain returned. I stood by the window watching the drops trace paths down the glass like small, persistent truths. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered. Amber's voice. Tight. Controlled. You didn't have to humiliate us like that. Like what? I asked. You know what you did. Going around, threatening people, making us look bad. I didn't threaten anyone, I said. I corrected them. She exhaled sharply. You're sick, Clara. You need help. I smiled into the dark. Then I'll send myself flowers. Click. The next morning, Mr. Landon called again. They've gone silent, he said. Too quiet, which means they're regrouping. What do? We stay ready. You've done everything right. If they file for guardianship, the judge will see the pattern. Lies, manipulation, financial control. That's the abuse, not your independence. His voice steadied me. Still, that night, I kept the porch light on. Not for them, for proof. Days passed. The neighborhood whispers stopped. The social worker's report came in, official, clear, no signs of impairment, independent, organized, aware. I framed it. Hang it by the door like armor. When I looked at it, I didn't see a piece of paper. I saw survival with a signature. Late one evening, a car stopped outside again. Headlights off, engine idling. I peeked through the curtain. Ethan. Alone this time. He didn't knock. He just sat there staring at the house. For a moment, I almost opened the door. Almost. But then I remembered the lies, the false witnesses, the cold words, and I stayed still. Eventually, he drove away. The taillights vanished into the dark like old guilt fading out. I whispered to the empty room, "You raised the wrong woman to underestimate." Then I locked the door, checked the camera, and went to bed. Sleep came easily, not peace, just strength disguised as rest. The next act of their war would be public, court. They'd drag me there soon. But now I have witnesses of my own, real ones. Truth doesn't need to shout. It just needs to stand. The envelope came on a gray morning. No return address, just my name. Clara Whitman. The letters looked heavy, as if they already knew what they carried. I slid it open with the same kitchen knife I used to peel apples. Inside, 2 sheets of legal weight paper. One sentence stole the air out of my chest. Petition for guardianship. Filed by Ethan and Amber Whitman. They'd done it. They'd turned blood into paperwork. My knees buckled, but I didn't fall. I'd already done all my falling this year. I read every line. Cold, rehearsed phrases dressed in pity. Our mother has become paranoid, erratic, and financially reckless. We seek temporary conservatorship for her safety. Temporary, that word. As if chains are lighter when they're polished. I pressed my palm against the table until it stopped, trembling. Then I called Mr. Landon. He answered on the first ring. "Clara?" "They filed it," I said. Silence. Then a sigh. I was expecting it, but not this soon. "They're saying I'm paranoid." "You're not paranoid if they really are after your money." That made me laugh, a thin sound that cut the morning in half. "Don't panic," he said. "We'll respond immediately. The burden of proof is on them. They have to convince a judge you can't take care of yourself. You've already given me everything we need to prove the opposite." "When's the hearing?" He rustled through the papers. 2 weeks. Judge Hawthorne. He's fair, but they'll try to paint you fragile. They'll weaponize your age. "I'm 71, I said. "Not ancient." "I know that." "They don't." He paused. "We'll prepare you, Clara, and when it's over, they'll regret every word they filed." That night, I sat at my kitchen table staring at the summons. It lay under the light like a dare. The same hands that once packed Ethan's school lunches were now listed as unfit to manage personal affairs. I could still hear his voice as a boy, small and sweet. "Mom, you're the strongest person I know." Now his signature sat beneath a sentence that tried to take that strength away. I picked up my pen, wrote across the top in red ink, "Denied." Then I folded it neatly, placed it back in the envelope, and left it by the door for Mr. Landon. The following week was a storm of preparation. Meetings, paperwork, statements. Mr. Landon brought in Dr. Moore, the psychologist who had tested me. "Clara," she said gently, "you have the mind of a chess player. Use it." She went through her report with me line by line, every score, every cognitive measure, each one above average. She smiled. "You're sharper than most of the judges I've evaluated." I smiled back. "Then let's make sure they know that." 3 days before the hearing, Margaret came by with cookies and courage. "They're saying in town that you've lost your grip," she said, her voice hot with anger. "Then I'll show them what holding on looks like," I said. She grinned. "You always did know how to turn a storm into a stage." The morning of the trial, I dressed in black. Not for mourning, for power. My hair pinned, my face steady. The reflection in the mirror didn't look like an old woman. It looked like a verdict waiting to happen. Outside, rain whispered against the car windows as Mr. Landon drove. He briefed me again. "They'll come in looking like victims. Don't react, stay calm. Let them lie themselves into a corner." "I've been calm for 35 years, I said. He smiled. "Then this will be easy." The courthouse smelled like polish and paper. Ethan and Amber stood by their lawyer, Mr. Cole, looking like they'd stepped out of a sympathy brochure. Amber wore black again, the professional mourner of her own conscience. Ethan avoided my eyes. Mr. Landon leaned over. "Don't speak until the judge asks. Your silence will sound louder than their noise." The bailiff called the case. Whitman versus Whitman. It echoed in the courtroom like a wound. Judge Hawthorne entered. Tall, gray, deliberate. A man who'd seen too many families break over money. Mr. Cole went first. "Your Honor, our clients seek guardianship not for personal gain but out of deep concern. Mrs. Whitman has displayed confusion, paranoia, and an inability to manage her finances safely." He said it was like reading a eulogy. Then he gestured toward me. "She has cut off all contact, installed surveillance, and accused her family of theft." He paused for effect. "In truth, she is being manipulated by outsiders who have isolated her from the people who love her." Love. They always use that word like a crowbar. When he finished, the room felt colder. Judge Hawthorne turned to Mr. Landon. "Your response?" Mr. Landon rose. "Your Honor, this is not a case of confusion. It's a case of exploitation. My client has documentation of over $33,000 transferred to these two adults in 3 years. Money she gave out of generosity, not obligation." He lifted a folder thick enough to shame a thief. "She's here today because she stopped paying their bills. That's not mental decline, that's boundaries." Murmurs rippled through the room. The judge raised a hand. "Continue." Mr. Landon called his first witness, Dr. Moore. She testified about my cognitive scores, sharp, logical, above average. Then Mr. Harper, my banker. He spoke of my spotless records and organized transactions. Finally, he called Margaret Dawes. She walked to the stand like she was carrying truth in both hands. "Mrs. Whitman is the most capable woman I know. She's not losing her mind. She's finding her freedom." Her words hit harder than any data sheet. When it was my turn, I rose slowly. No shaking hands. No tears. I faced the judge. "I may be 71, I said, "but age is not a diagnosis. For 30 years, I raised my son alone. I worked, saved, and built a life that was mine. When he and his wife tried to take it, I did the hardest thing a mother can do. I said no." The room was still. "I didn't lose my mind," I continued. "I just stopped losing my money." Even the stenographer smiled. When I finished, Judge Hawthorne sat in silence for a long moment. Then he said, "I've heard enough." He turned to Ethan and Amber. "Financial dependence is not grounds for guardianship. Petition denied." A single sound filled the courtroom. Amber's sharp inhale like a balloon deflating. Mr. Landon squeezed my arm. "You did it," he whispered. Outside, the rain had stopped. The sky broke open into light. Ethan walked past me without a word. Amber glared, her lips tight, her eyes empty. I didn't stop them. I didn't say goodbye. Some endings don't need words. That night, back home, I framed the court order, hung it above the mantel, next to my late husband's photo. He'd always said, "Don't let them take your peace, Clara." So I hadn't. The silence in my house wasn't loneliness anymore. It was justice catching its breath. The house was quiet again, but it wasn't the old silence, the one that felt like abandonment. It was new, solid, earned. I sat on the couch and looked at the framed verdict above the mantel. Petition denied. 2 words that had rebuilt my spine. For a long time, I just listened. To nothing. No phone buzzing, no forced apologies, no fake I love yous, followed by money requests. Peace has a sound. It's the hum of your own breathing when nobody's controlling it. 2 days after the trial, Margaret knocked. She didn't say anything, just walked in holding a bottle of sparkling cider and 2 glasses. "I figured this occasion doesn't need champagne," she said. "Victory doesn't always come with bubbles," I replied. We sat by the window, watching rain slide down the glass. Margaret took a sip, then smiled. "You know what everyone's saying, don't you?" I raised an eyebrow. "That I'm crazy?" She laughed. "No, that you're brave." For the first time, that word didn't feel foreign. That night, I couldn't sleep, not because of fear, but because my mind was too awake, too alive. I opened my notebook, the one that had seen every tear, every plan, every calculation. On a blank page, I wrote, "This is what freedom looks like. Unpaid and unstoppable." I underlined it twice, closed the cover, and slid it into a drawer. That chapter was over. It was time to write a new one. A week later, I went to the cemetery. I hadn't been there in months. The grass around Robert's grave had grown tall. I knelt and trimmed it with my hands like I used to. "I did it," I whispered. "They tried to take everything, love, even my name, but I fought back." The wind answered with a soft sigh through the trees. For a moment, it felt like he was beside me. Proud, quiet, smiling the way he used to when I stood my ground. I left a single lily on the stone. "Rest easy," I said. "Your stubborn wife is still winning." The next morning, the world felt bigger, not because it had changed, but because I finally had space in it again. I joined Margaret at her garden club. There were 5 women there that day, all older, all carrying invisible wars. Maria, who'd been tricked by her nephew into selling her land. Carmen, who raised 3 children only for them to forget her number. Alfreda, 82 and radiant, who said her grandchildren stopped visiting once they learned she'd changed her will. We sat in Margaret's backyard, surrounded by tulips and truth. When I told my story, they didn't gasp. They nodded. Every one of them had seen that same hunger in their families, that same disguise of love worn thin by greed. Alfreda raised her glass of lemonade to all the women who stopped paying for permission to exist. We laughed and toasted, and for the first time in years, I wasn't the lonely one at the table. Days began to find their rhythm, mornings with coffee and sunlight, afternoons spent painting again, soft strokes of color that felt like breathing, evenings with Margaret, or the garden ladies, or sometimes just myself and an old record spinning quietly. One afternoon, a letter came. I froze when I saw the handwriting. Ethan's. It wasn't long. Just a single page. "Mom, we lost everything. Amber's gone. I can't find a job. I'm sorry. I don't expect anything. Just forgiveness." I read it 3 times. Each word felt heavy with something between guilt and manipulation. For a moment, I almost reached for the phone. Then I remembered the trial, the signatures, the lies. Forgiveness doesn't mean you reopen the door. It just means you stop waiting for the knock. I folded the letter once, slid it into a drawer beside the old bills, and locked it away. The past can live there, boxed, labeled, powerless. The next week, Margaret surprised me with an invitation. "Come to the city with me," she said. "There's a senior art collective downtown. You'll fit right in." I hesitated. I haven't shown my work in years. Then it's time. The gallery smelled of turpentine and stories, walls covered in color, rage, love, memory, all painted by people who'd lived enough to mean every stroke. When I showed them my work, a small oil painting of hands unlocking a door, they called it the moment. A woman with silver hair touched my shoulder. "You painted freedom," she said softly. That night, the organizer asked me to join the collective. Classes, exhibitions, travel, something I'd always dreamed of but never allowed myself to want. I said yes. A month later, I sold my house, packed the memories, left the ghosts, moved to a bright apartment near the city center. Small, sunlit, alive. On the first night there, I stood on the balcony with a cup of tea and looked up at the stars. They weren't different, but I was. I thought about everything I'd lost and realized none of it was mine to begin with. Not the money, not their approval, not even the illusion of a family built on debt. What I had now was something better, a life that answered only to me. Sometimes people ask if I ever heard from Ethan again. Once, months later, a postcard arrived. No return address, just 2 words: "Thank you." I never knew if it meant apology or sarcasm, but either way, it didn't matter. I had already stopped translating other people's love into currency. That night, before bed, I lit a small candle on the table and whispered a prayer. Not for them, but for me. For strength. For peace. For the wisdom to know the difference between help and harm. And as the flame flickered, I realized something I'd never dared admit aloud. I wasn't just free. I was finally alive. When people tell my story, they call it survival. But to me, it's simpler than that. It's the moment a mother stopped begging to be special and started being whole. The city woke me up with its noise. But for once, I didn't mind. The sound of traffic below my window wasn't chaos. It was proof I was still moving. I stood on the balcony of my new apartment. Wind in my hair, sunlight on my face. Freedom looked like this: small, loud, imperfect, but mine. I made coffee, turned on the radio, and smiled when I caught my reflection in the glass. No longer the woman who waited for apologies that never came. Just me, Clara Whitman. Rewritten, not erased. 3 weeks later, Margaret called. "Pack a bag," she said. "We're going somewhere." "Where?" "Doesn't matter. Just somewhere that isn't here." We ended up on a train to Vermont. 5 women in 1 cabin, laughter spilling out like secrets finally free. Margaret, Maria, Carmen, Elfrida, and me. The garden club turned into a sisterhood of survivors. When the train curved through the mountains, the others dozed off, but I couldn't. I watched the world roll by in blurs of green and silver. It struck me how much time I'd spent sitting still, waiting for someone else to steer my life. Now, even the motion felt like victory. The cabin we rented sat near a lake. The first morning, Elfrida made oatmeal and told stories about her childhood farm. Maria painted by the window. Carmen sang softly while trimming flowers. I took my sketchbook and walked outside. The lake was still, a sheet of glass reflecting sky and courage. I dipped my fingers in the water. It was cold, but alive. For the first time in years, I painted without needing it to mean something. No metaphors, no hidden grief, just color, movement, breath. When I was done, Margaret looked at the canvas and smiled. "What's it called?" she asked. I thought for a moment. Beginning. When we returned home, the city didn't feel as heavy. I started volunteering at an art center for seniors, teaching people how to paint emotions they couldn't speak. One afternoon, a woman named Rose stayed behind after class. She was shy, maybe 60, hands shaking slightly as she mixed her paints. "I'm not good at this," she said. "Neither was I replied. Then I realized good isn't the point. She smiled, eyes wet. "My son hasn't spoken to me in a year." I put my hand over hers. Then paint that. That night, I realized I wasn't just teaching art. I was teaching survival disguised as color. Months passed. Spring melted into summer, and my days filled with small miracles. Warm bread, shared laughter, quiet walks. Sometimes I'd pass a cafe window and catch my reflection laughing, and it would startle me. Joy takes time to recognize after you've forgotten its shape. I began traveling again, short trips first, then longer ones. Chicago to visit my sister Diana, who cried when she saw me. Paris, because I'd always wanted to see it with someone who didn't make me pay for dinner. Florence, where I stood before Michelangelo's David and whispered, "You and I both survived people who thought they could carve us smaller." Everywhere I went, I wrote postcards, not to send, but to keep, little fragments of memory. To Clara, who finally let the world catch up to her. To Clara, who stopped apologizing for outliving her pain, each one a thank you note to myself. One evening, back in the city, I walked into a cafe and saw something that made my chest tighten. A young man, mid-30s, tired eyes, wedding ring. He was counting coins at the counter, his wife whispering urgently beside him, embarrassment written all over her face. They reminded me of Ethan and Amber, not in guilt, but in warning. I paid for their meal quietly and left before they noticed. Not forgiveness, just closure with a heartbeat. As I walked home, I realized I didn't hate Ethan anymore. Hate ties you to what hurts you. I had already cut the rope. Maybe someday he'd grow into the man I once believed in. Maybe not. Either way, he'd have to do it without my money or my permission. A year passed before I even noticed the anniversary. The day I stopped being Mom, the bank. The day I became Clara, the woman who said no. I celebrated by throwing a small dinner. Margaret brought flowers. Carmen cooked her famous lemon chicken. Maria played old jazz records. We toasted with apple cider again, because bubbles aren't what make a celebration, memory does. Elfrida raised her glass first. "To every woman who ever bought love," she said, "and to every woman who learned it's cheaper to love herself." We clinked glasses, laughed, cried a little, and in that moment, surrounded by laughter and candlelight, I understood something simple and sacred. Family isn't who you give life to, it's who gives life back to you. That night, before bed, I opened my old notebook, the one that had seen every wound and every victory. On the last page, I wrote, "I asked when the wedding would be, and she said, 'We got married yesterday.' That was the day I buried the mother I was and gave birth to the woman I became." I set the notebook down, turned off the lamp, and let the city hum me to sleep. Outside, lights blinked like a heartbeat against the skyline. Inside, I breathed deeply, my chest full of peace, not fear. Tomorrow, maybe I'll start another painting. Maybe I'd fly somewhere new. Maybe I'd just wake up late and have pancakes. Because finally, after a lifetime of giving everything away, I'd learned that the smallest joy is still mine to keep. The sun was setting through my window, pouring gold. Across the walls of my apartment, the city was still loud below, but inside it was calm. The kind of calm that comes only when you've already fought every war worth fighting. A year and a half had passed since the trial. I didn't count the days anymore. When pain stops being fresh, it stops keeping time. I poured myself a cup of tea and sat by the window, notebook open on my lap. The same notebook that once held panic and plans now smelled faintly of ink and peace. On the first page, I had written months ago, "Freedom costs the same as foolishness. Only one pays back." Now, finally, I was ready to write the ending. The doorbell rang, not sharp, not demanding, just a single hesitant chime. Through the peephole, a delivery boy holding a small package. "Mrs. Whitman?" he asked. "A parcel for you, from an Ethan Whitman." For a moment, my heart paused. Then it started again, slower, steady. I signed for it, thanked him, and closed the door. The package was small, no note on the outside. Inside, a framed photograph. Ethan, as a boy, maybe 8 years old, holding a wooden airplane I'd carved for him on his birthday. We were both laughing. Behind the photo, a folded letter. Mom, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even know if I deserve to ask, but I finally understand what you were trying to teach me. That money runs out, but character doesn't. Amber left months ago. I've been working double shifts, and I think for the first time, I'm proud of the kind of tiredness I feel. I saw your painting online, the one with the open door. I cried, because I knew it wasn't meant for me, but I wanted to walk through it anyway. I love you, Mom. No conditions this time. Ethan. I read it twice. No tears came. Not yet. Just a warmth that spread slowly, like light finding a forgotten room. That night, I sat on the balcony again, the photo resting on my lap. The air was cool, the stars quiet. I thought about all the versions of me that had lived inside this story. The giver, the ghost, the fool, the fighter, and now, the survivor who had learned that love without respect isn't love. It's a loan that never gets repaid. I whispered into the night, maybe one day Ethan will sit across from each other again, as equals. I didn't know if it would happen, but the thought didn't hurt anymore, because even if it didn't, I had already healed. Weeks later, I received another letter, this time from the gallery. My painting, The Moment, had been accepted into a national exhibit for emerging artists over 60. I laughed out loud when I read that phrase, emerging, as if it took me 70 years to rise from the surface. The exhibit was in Boston. Margaret came with me, dressed in a floral scarf and pride. When we arrived, the hall shimmered with glass and light. Dozens of paintings hung across the walls, colors of age, memory, rebellion. And there, in the center, was mine. A door half open, sunlight spilling through, a single chair on the other side. A young journalist approached. Mrs. Whitman, your work has become quite the statement piece, she said. What inspired it? I smiled softly. Freedom. She waited for more, but I didn't explain. Some stories don't need retelling. They're written in the quiet between brushstrokes. After the show, we walked to the harbor. The ocean glowed under the evening lights, restless and beautiful. Margaret linked her arm through mine. Do you ever think about them? She asked. Sometimes, I said, but not to mourn, to measure. Measure what? How far I've come. She smiled. You know, you were right all along. Some people never learn until you stop teaching. I nodded. And some lessons, I said, you have to learn by losing. Back home, I hung the exhibition photo next to the court order, not as trophies, but as reminders. 2 battles, one fought in court, one in my heart, both won with truth. I looked around the room, my books, my art, my peace, and whispered, This is what special people looks like. Sometimes I still hear echoes of the past. The phone rang at midnight, the voice asking for help. The guilt is trying to claw its way back, but now I know how to answer it. With silence and peace. Because the greatest revenge isn't anger, it's a joy that doesn't include them. On my 73rd birthday, the Garden Club threw a small celebration at the Art Center. There were flowers, laughter, and a cake too sweet for our teeth. Maria gave a toast. To Clara, she said, who reminded us that the word no can be holy. Everyone clapped, but I didn't feel like a saint, just a woman who finally chose herself. Later, after everyone left, I sat alone in the empty hall, candlelight flickering across the walls. I took out my notebook one last time, and I wrote, They said only special people were invited. I believed them once. I thought special meant loved, chosen, needed. But special isn't about being invited. It's about walking away when you're not. I closed the book, blew out the candle, and smiled into the dark. Because after everything, after betrayal, humiliation, war, and victory, I was finally free enough to mean the words I spoke aloud before going to sleep. I forgive you, but I belong to me. That night, the city lights blinked like constellations forming my name, and I knew that somewhere out there, maybe in another small apartment, a tired man was learning the same lesson in his own quiet way. Love isn't earned through guilt or gold. It's kept alive through respect. And for the first time since I'd asked, "When is the wedding?" I didn't need an answer, because the ceremony I'd been waiting for had already happened. I had finally married my own freedom.